Ya Ali Madad. Welcome to another episode of Chat Over Chai, hosted by the Women's Activities Portfolio for Tanzania. Today, we are going to be speaking to Tahseen Shariff about the different milestones our child goes through. We're going to speak about the way a child learns, what things to look out for. We're going to be speaking to her about the different learning styles that a child can be. Many times as a parent, I have two boys, a 10 and a 12-year-old now, and throughout their childhood and as they've been growing up, there are so many signs that we've been told to look out for, what they need to do, how they need to do it, by when they need to do it. And all these guidelines have been developed to help us as parents, as teachers, to spot the signs of how children are. But our children are different. Every child is unique. And today, we thought it would be a good idea to get Tahseen on this show so that we can explore the milestones that are there as indicators, but also to understand that every child is different. Every child has different needs and will go through every stage at a different point. So please, while we are going through this program, we will try to show the different stages and just give an idea of what parents need to look out for. This is no way set in stone. Every child will go through everything differently, and these signs will allow you to figure out when and how you can support your child if that is required. So now, let me tell you a little bit about Tahseen. Tahseen is an inclusive education consultant and learning support coordinator, certified in child and adolescent counseling. She holds a master's in inclusive special education, working with different schools in Dar es Salaam. And in her free time, she works with children to mentor them and guide parents to assist them in understanding their child's learning abilities. So, without further delay, let us get Tahseen. Welcome, Tahseen. Thank you for joining us today on Chat Over Chai. I hope you've got your cup of tea with you, like we have.
I do.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you to talk about such an important topic. First, let's talk about you. What do you do? How do you do it?
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me, Nutaila, on Chat with Chai. I love chai, so this is going to be fun. What I do personally is I work as an inclusive educator. Now, what the educator does, an inclusive educator works with children with different difficulties and tries to bring them up to class level. So in addition to that, I'm also a school counselor. Now, the reason I took counseling is because most of the children who have difficulties are also the ones who are facing the mental health issues because of the frustrations or the stigma attached to not performing enough in school. So what I do is I evaluate them for their difficulties, their learning styles, their abilities to work in the classroom to match their fellow colleagues, and then I help them. So I help them get through so that they can get to class level. It happens over a lot of time, and the earlier we can do this, the better it is.
Wow. Tahseen, I'm so glad that we found you to do this because I think it's a very important role that you play for parents, for teachers, and for the child specifically. And it's very hard in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, to find people to turn to who can guide parents in this aspect, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So, let us begin right at the beginning when we have our baby, right? When a child is just born, what are some of the things and milestones that we should look out for?
Okay, so the first thing we should understand is that no child is alike. All right. So, because every child has their own potential, their own strength, and I hate to use the word weaknesses because they don't have any, we've just not understood how they work. So every child can learn, every child will be able to reach their potential. We just need to find the way to do it. So as parents, we have a few guidelines, right? The first one is developmental milestones. Now, while these are very, very important, they are not fixed in stone, right? And then the second one is learning styles. Learning styles is how your child learns. So as we get to that, you will understand your child learns in an immensely different ways. So we need to figure out which way do they learn best. And then the third one is behavioral and academic patterns. As parents, we cannot be there every step of the way, but we can see patterns in their results, in their behavior. So this is how we understand them. So if I just jump into the milestones ones, milestones are categorized in 4 ways. As your baby is born, the milestones are set to give you an explanation as to how your baby should develop in language, fine motor, gross motor, and how they understand the world around them. So the milestones will tell you at 0 to 12 what your child should be doing in terms of all of this, and then from 2 to 3 what they should be doing. So this is what milestones are all about. Now, why are they so important? It is that if they miss the milestone completely, then you need to be aware, not worried, but aware that your child has missed this. So you need to make sure they cover it up in the next phase of their milestone, right? So a rough is, this is too much information, but this is like the rough thing. We are going to go slide by slide what the child needs in terms of milestones. Okay. Now at 3.
Yeah. Sorry, here actually, it's. I'd like to share a personal experience because I think as a parent,
Yes.
I have 2 boys, 10 and 12 right now. But when my younger son was going through these milestones of, from baby to 4 years and in preschool,
Yes.
He was not hitting the milestones at exactly the right time.
Absolutely.
Or the thing. And as a parent, I was worried, but I was also very much aware because I knew about all of this.
Yeah.
That these are milestones, but these are indicative milestones. They don't have
Exactly.
to reach this milestone dot at 3 months or dot at 6 months. And it's a range, and throughout that age is where they should be able to get to that stage.
Absolutely.
So, as a parent, it's very important that we understand this, and as a teacher as well, that, some children will hit a milestone not at 3 months, maybe at 6 months, but they will get there. And you're very right when you say that if they miss it, that's when we should become aware of it and get the support that is required.
Exactly. Now, for example, I'd just like to point out an important thing that happens at 3 months. Tummy time. If the child is comfortable, then we put them on their tummies for at least 20 minutes per day. What that does is that encourages the core muscles to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your child is not turning on their own or is not comfortable, then we start with 2 minutes, 3 minutes until we build up that time. So this is how it is important to understand the milestones. That, okay, my child should be doing this. So if he is not doing it or she is not doing it, then I can encourage him to do that. So as parents, the more aware we are, the in a better position our child's development will be. Right? In addition to that, if I move on to this 2-year point, if your child is not speaking the words, for example, one of the criteria of 1 and 2 years is that they start speaking at that point. They will say 1 word, 2 words, 3 words. Now, there are some children who don't like speaking in 1 word or 2 words. So I know personally a child who is now a good 12 years old. But when he was 3 years old, his parent was extremely worried that my child does not speak.
Yeah.
And then once he hit 4 years old, he was speaking in long sentences.
Wow.
Now, what the child was doing was that he was collecting all this vocabulary so that he can actually form sentences before speaking them out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that in turn tells us that developmental milestones and what the child actually is doing are also different. So maybe the child already understands and grasps the concept, but doesn't want to show until he's good at it. Now, how can you tell the difference? Because it could be it could be something that they are behind schedule on, or it could be something that's perfectly normal. Now, how can you tell the difference is that if they are maintaining eye contact with you, they are understanding what you are saying, they are following the instruction. So there is cognition.
Okay.
And they are able to point out to what they need, then their lack of language can be taken as observatory.
Okay.
Okay. If they are speaking, or if they're indicating, or they are not understanding, or they are babbling things which are not clear at all, and they're already 3 years old, then you need to see a speech pathologist or a speech therapist to see, just to rule out any problem that there might be. Okay. So this is I think the mama, baba, every child, every father, every mother wants to hear their child speak these words, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's so much encouragement on language. And I feel it really takes the frustration out of the tantrums that they are having at 2 years.
Tantrums. Let's talk about that. Every parent's worry, the terrible twos and the tantrums that come along with it.
So at year 2 years, the child starts feeling emotions, the big ones.
Okay.
So up till between the ages of 1.5 to 3 years, the brain suddenly starts feeling emotion that is not related to just physical pain. For example, worrying, fear, separation anxiety kicks in.
Okay.
And unfortunately or fortunately, that is also the time that we start sending the child to preschools.
Yeah.
And keeps it. So it is the same time it's happening. The child is feeling all these big emotions. Suddenly they will have nightmares of something that they had watched or something that they had seen, or they feel that they understand that the parent is leaving and not coming back for a long time. Because I have had parents tell me that my child has been okay because I've been going to work since he was 6 months, but now at 2 years, he doesn't want to let me go to work. My dada, for one, is one of them. Yeah, she had a baby about 3 years ago, and when the baby, and she's been coming to work from 6 months of his birth.
Yeah.
And she now tells me that he won't let me go in the morning. And I tell her, yes, because he now understands that you won't be back for the next 8 hours.
Okay.
Before this, the time wasn't a concept, but now it is a concept. So when you talk about milestones in 3 to 4 years, I think it's very important to understand first that all of these milestones are, like we said, not fixed in stone, right? Yeah. But from 3 years, they start learning life skills.
Okay.
Now, if you know Maria Montessori, her whole program works on teaching life skills by the age of 6. So her program includes buttoning, zipping, lacing, shoe polishing, map work. All of this work is done in Montessori. So that, and there is no stress on writing, reading. There is no stress on that. Yeah. She believes that if we work on life skills by the age of 6, we ingrain the fine motor skills inside their brain, so they are able to then carry out and become stronger in those. Okay. So now, for example, if you're a parent who is not sending your child to preschool, it's great. There is no problem. In fact, if you are a stay-at-home mom, you could do that. Quite. But instead of focusing only on A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, focus on fine motor skills. Get them to do the big blocks, the buttoning, like with the big buttons, the zipping, the shoe polishing. These are all important because these play a role in their dressing themselves part. Okay. Now, there are some children who will not get there. I think if we talk about children, then I have an 8-year-old nephew who took a long time in learning his skills, but he's perfectly fine now. Yeah.
But so I'll share the example of my younger son. Actually, so he is 10 now and he can dress himself very well. But
Exactly.
when he was 3, 4, 5, 6, he was having trouble. And one of the reasons is that his gross motor skills took a little longer to develop. Yeah. Because his body was actually growing faster than like his mind could catch up, I think. It's, you know, they say that your gross motor skills and your body grows, your mind catches up to that growth as well.
Exactly.
If I'm not wrong, I think, yeah. So he was having trouble, you know, buttoning himself, or he could walk very well without shoes on. But if he would wear his shoes, he would start stumbling over.
That's
himself.
right. That's right. That's because he can't connect the sensation between his feet on the ground and his feet inside something and then connecting it to the ground.
Yes. And you know, he wears shoes now. He can run in shoes. He can walk in shoes. And he got there. So, you know, these are some of the things as parents we worry, but really they do get there at their own pace and their time and when they're ready. And I think that's a really important thing.
It is very important. Now, while we are here at gross motor, I just want to pick out that something that I missed at year 1 is the crawling part. Now, some children just go from sitting to standing and walking. Now, they are very strong, so they have been able to stand up. However, crawling is an important milestone.
Oh, okay.
I cannot begin to stress the importance of crawling. Yes, it connects the hand, the feet, and the knees with the brain. So when that is happening, if your child is bottom shuffling, for example, they are not crawling to where they need to go, they are just dragging themselves by their bottom.
Some kids do that. Yeah.
My daughter did that. She bottom shuffled her way around the house in her pamper. It was quite funny, but we had to encourage her to crawl because crawling really helps the muscles of the hands to develop because the weight of the body goes on the hands. So this fine motor skills, so suppose if your child missed it, for example, your child missed the crawling phase, they just went from sitting to standing, perfectly fine. I mean, they've done it. But now play crawling. Now do crawling games around the house. You know, like crawl with them, even if they're 10 years old. If you think that they have missed the crawling phase, please crawl around the house with them. Let them play. These are good activities and they build the fine motor skills. And so moving on now, the developmental milestones are also affected by how much input you're putting in flashlights or in lights. So remember, the minute you introduce YouTube, TV, phone, it makes it difficult for the child to do these physical activities because the mind is occupied. So, and the addiction of it sets in earlier as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what happens? So what I say, rule, under the age of 2, no phones, no TV, nothing. Now, that is to say, technology plays a huge role because we are living in a time of technology.
Now, they need to know these things.
Yes. Now, if you want to introduce an iPad or an iPhone, do it after the age of 2. And do not give them access to any moving pictures like movies or YouTubes or anything. So what you are giving them is apps in which they are using, for example, puzzles, or they are matching colors, or they don't have to be ABCD. Now, I really like to stress this point. At age 2, it's great if your child knows their ABCDs. But it is more important for them to understand and connect information in their environment. So if you're going to give them an iPad, then give them a jigsaw puzzle, match the jigsaw puzzle. You know, like there are so many apps these days, which are for children. They are just being exposed to that technology. that help them to develop, rather than just listening to YouTube videos and seeing the
Yeah.
slide over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had more control over it. They could touch the screen. It was an interactive sort of play.
Yes.
Whereas in YouTube, if you look, or in any other listening videos, you are the recipient of the knowledge. So you
Yeah.
can't do anything to the screen. That makes them very sedentary. So I would really like you to avoid that, so that the children have more focus later on in life, right?
And you're absolutely right. Nowadays, with all these apps, I mean, this you're talking about, 10 years ago, but now
Yeah.
all the apps, they are so interactive, and they've developed so
Yes.
many more apps for kids that,
Yes.
allows them to match the shapes, match the colors, match all
Exactly.
these different things, and using those as a learning tool. So they're using the iPad, they're getting used to
Yes.
that and
Yeah.
learning how to use it, but using it in a positive way that helps their development.
Absolutely. So nothing below the age of 2, and you can
Mhm.
begin your introduction to technology from 2.5, 3 years on, but limit it to 2 hours, because it is addictive. This is very addictive. So we want
Yeah.
to keep it, encourage physical work as much as we possibly can, physical
Yeah.
books as much as we possibly can. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So moving on now. So, Nutella, I think this is your favorite one, isn't it?
It is. I believe in learning styles so much, and like I was sharing with you, and I'll share with the rest of our listeners today, is that my two boys are completely different learning styles. They are so different in the way that they learn.
Sure. Okay, so basically, Howard Gardner, a philosopher, a long time ago, he realized that all children don't learn the same. So this concept of slow learners, he wanted to go against this concept. He said, no child is a slow learner.
Yeah,
Maybe we are not
absolutely.
teaching them the right way. So he came up with these 7 things after doing a lot of research on more than 100, 200 children. He came up with this concept. And he said some children learn by pictures, so they are visual.
Yeah.
So for these children, they need to see something before they understand it. Then comes the auditory children. These children need to hear something properly, clearly, before they can understand it. So by showing them pictures, they will just see the picture. They will not understand what the picture is about. You will need to tell them what the picture is about. Then this is the favorite one for every teacher in class, is the linguistic one. Yeah. I always tell my teachers when I am teacher training that you love the linguistic child. You love the
Yeah.
child who can read off the board and understand it immediately, who can read off a textbook and understand everything, who can write down your notes as soon as you have said them. So this
Mhm.
is the linguistic learner. They learn best through words, written words, spoken words, all of it.
Yeah.
Then there is the kinesthetic learner. And the majority of the students these days are either visual or kinesthetic learners.
Yeah.
Because all children like to move when they want to learn, or just like to move, they like to
Yeah.
play. So if we can put the lessons in a way that they can play with it, then it makes a big difference for them.
Yeah.
Then some
Absolutely.
of them are social. Social means like they cannot study alone. If you put them alone in a room with a book, they just fall asleep, or they get
Mm.
distracted, or they zone out. And then you ask them, did you study with your book in front of you? I've been studying all day, but no results.
It's right there, but you know.
No results.
Yeah.
And this is the child, if you do group study with them, to bring up 2 or 3 children, they are discussing the work
Yeah.
and, of course, cracking a few jokes on the side. But this is the fun part for them. They learn through group work.
Yeah.
And then there is the one who learns only by themselves. If you put them in a group, they don't like it. They don't like to hear other people's noise, other people's
Mm.
opinions, other people's ways. So they just want to study on their own. I have had a few students like this. They say, I would rather not be in any group. Can you just give me my worksheet alone? Or can you just give me my project alone? I'll do it by myself.
Yeah.
And then there are the rare ones who are the mathematical ones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now they're not that rare. Apparently, there's a lot of children who like logic learning. So these
Yes.
are the children who like facts. Don't give them roundabout. Tell them how we are going to use it, where we are going to use it, and when we are going to use it. And then they start working on that. So they are very number-minded. They like things. So these are great accountants. They are great mathematicians.
Coders are logic.
Coders.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think kids are amazing. I think the more I work with them, the more I learn with them. Because when you are alone, you only think of your learning style. But when you work with children, you realize, I could have looked at this way as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think working with children is an amazing, amazing feeling of satisfaction. So now teachers cannot do everything in the classroom.
Yes.
So normally we tell our teachers to teach in VARC. Okay, so VARC is visual, auditory, read and write, and kinesthetic learning. Now that covers most of the learning styles. And usually the logical and mathematical thinkers, the natural thinkers, all of them fit into this criteria.
Yeah.
Now, if a child, before teaching, the teacher must understand which percentage of her child, the classroom, is read and write, kinesthetic, auditory, or visual. Now, this is an important point. So before even beginning, the first 1 month, the teacher is just on an observation that are my children learning best through listening, through hands-on? Are they learning? Now, how does she do that? Now, I have seen teachers just go in and start teaching curriculum, but ideally, the first 1 month is offering the curriculum in 4 different ways, and then seeing that how my child, this particular child, which child, how are they learning? I think going in with the assumption that all children are just learning through read and write, especially in high school, I think there is a common misconception that now they are at high school level and they should only learn through read and write and auditory method and leave the visuals and leave the kinesthetics to someone else. So I believe that the teacher should focus on these points.
Absolutely, because if a child has a learning style, a personal learning style, it's not going to change as they grow older, right?
Yes,
I mean, they can always learn to pick up other learning styles when required, but the personal preference that someone has, that is going to be part of their personality and the way they are, right? And that's the best way that they learn.
Exactly. Now, ideally, you want your child to be all of these 4.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Eventually.
But eventually, this is what we want. We want them to learn in all ways, because the world is not always books. It's not always listening. It's not always fun. So we want them to learn in all ways.
Yeah.
Right?
And I
but
think
it takes time.
It does. Yeah. And I think that's important because we're talking about children right now, but even in the work environment, I think as a professional, right? You need to be able to adapt to all the different scenarios that you're going to be put into and pick up and have these learning styles. But your personal preference will always be there. And that's the best way that you will learn. And personally, you organize yourself to pick it up in that way. But realistically, in the world, no one is going to adapt to your way when you're older, right? So I think it's important that we realize that as an adult, we have these learning styles that we prefer, but we have to be adaptable as well. Now, obviously, for a child, it is, as an adult, it is our job to adapt to the way they learn best, to help them in that way.
Yeah. So the rule of the thumb is that eventually they should be able to learn in all manners. And because the point of school is not just to learn for school.
Yes.
So we want to we want to create leaders, entrepreneurs, thinkers for the adult life, for the future. So we do need to prepare them for life. So a lot of teachers will say, but you are spoiling them too much. But I always tell them that if they know their learning style, then they will know that, okay, I've learned this against my learning style. Now I can go home and learn it in my learning style.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yes. But if they don't know their learning style, then how are they ever going to learn it?
No,
they will always say, I don't know, and feel less than others.
Now that we've talked about teachers, do you have some suggestions for parents of how they can, do some activities at home for example, for kinesthetic learners. You talked about the visual learner and using the iPad as well for interaction. But what about the kinesthetic learner? What things can parents do at home for those students?
Yeah, amazing. So I think with kinesthetic learners, parents need to realize that, for example, if they're very young, if we start from very young, there is so much we can do for kinesthetic learners.
Yeah.
For example, if we are going on a car ride, yes, during the car ride, we can make a game up.
Okay.
In which they are using different words and different letters. So they are connecting movement to sounds.
Okay.
Then I think with sight words, for example, they're not getting their sight words or they are not learning how to read properly. Then you keep some letters on the floor or some words and you twister, like you play the game and you put the letters on the, you either jump to it or you twist your body towards it so you can learn. Yeah. So all of these actions connect the kinesthetic learner to their curriculum.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Like in numbers, they use manipulatives like Play-Doh, toys, soda cork. So we don't have to have always the fancy items. Like at home, we have buttons lying around. We have, do sorting with them. Some buttons have 2 holes, some buttons have 4 holes. So tell them to organize it with the 2-hole button separately, the 4-hole button separately. So you see, what you are telling them is that life numbers is around us everywhere. So they connect math to life and not to torture, because at the end of the school years, they really start, if they are not mathematical and logical learners, they start hating maths because of its difficulties. Nothing should be forced.
Yes.
I believe the minute you force, it becomes a punishment. And there goes the connection with that subject.
And similarly, I was thinking of an example when, so because my older son is a kinesthetic learner, so he likes to hold and grab and touch and feel. And I've seen that since he was very young, that is the way he learns. And my younger one is not. He never liked to touch goop, for example. He would sit there and he would watch us make the goop. And he'd be like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to actually play with it or get in there. And he just, even sand, for example, that was something that he did not enjoy to play with. So from a very young age, I realized that, my older one liked all this, and I can see it till today. He is the one who's fixing and getting things together, and he needs to touch and hold and do all of this. Whereas my younger one does not, he does not need to do that. He will watch, he will listen, and he will absorb the information and understand it. And that's why this is my favorite topic.
True. I think it's an important part that we all need to. A lot of children have been labeled as slow learners because they haven't been taught in their learning style. Yeah. And that is the saddest part, because they are hyper. People say, no, this one is too disruptive in class, and he doesn't sit and learn. All he needed was a kinesthetic way of learning, and he would have learned exactly what you taught him. So I think we really need to understand this one. Thank you so much. I think this was a really good discussion as well on this topic.
My favorite.
There we go. So this is our mantra. When you determine which learning style best suits your child, you help them learn more effectively. Yes?
Yeah.
So, right. Now we are now beginning where we start to see some difficulties or learning issues in children. So we have executive functions. Okay. Now, this is the most important part of our brain. This is the brain. This is the part where we should be able to plan, organize, and complete tasks, even as adults. Rather, as adults, we need these 3 functions. And kids are developing these executive functions. So by the time they hit 18, they have a solid control over them. Okay. Now, the three executive functions are working memory, cognitive flexibility, and inhibitory control. Now, big words, let's make them smaller. Okay. So, working memory is just a library in your brain. So, you heard a piece of information from somewhere.
Okay.
And when you go somewhere else and a topic comes up, you retrieve that information that you got from that somewhere and you are able to offer it to this site.
Okay.
All right. So if it's 1 day later or 1 year later or 10 years later, you are able to retrieve this information and share it with somebody else.
Okay.
Then comes cognitive flexibility. This cognitive flexibility is to think about something, but in multiple ways. Now, my favorite example is the rubber band. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, the rubber band was initially created in its form to hold items together. Just a rubber band, hold hair together, hold items together. But we know that the rubber band can also be used as a catapult, can even draw shapes on it on the geoboard.
Yes.
You can do quite a few things with the same rubber band. Now, if a person cannot see the different patterns of using a simple item, even like a paper clip. So one of the exercises that we do is we give the children or even adults in a teacher training session some items of everyday use.
Okay.
It could be a bobby pin, a paper clip, a rubber band, a pen, a pencil, anything. We just give them and say, now write for us 10 different ways this can be used apart from just writing or apart from just that. So this is a very good exercise that even parents can do at home with their children above the age of 5. You can ask them, okay, I have this. What else can I use? You will be surprised. They are the best ones.
Yeah, they come up
because
with
they have
stuff.
Imagination. Yeah, we adults tend to drop in our imagination, but they have imagination. They can say, I can draw, I can make a dinosaur out of it, and they can make all sorts of things out of it. But teachers find it a little bit more difficult unless they have done this exercise before, which then makes it a lot easier, right? So this is flexible thinking. Inhibitory control is to have self-control.
Which is hard, even as adults.
Yes. Now, ability to ignore distractions or to resist temptations, right? Now, I love to give an example of one preschool teacher here. She had her students and she used to put a tray of watermelons in front on the table. And then she would tell the students who were toddlers under the age of 3, she would tell them, everybody can pass over there, but nobody touches the watermelon until it's break time. And then she would just leave it on the middle of the table. The children would be going around. It's a hot day in Dar es Salaam. So they would be going around it. They would be looking at it, but they would know that I'm not allowed to touch this until break time. So she would take it out like 15 minutes earlier. The children had to be patient for 15 to 20 minutes while they did their other activities like circle time or other, like all of this going on. And then when they would come, she would say, okay, one by one, and everybody would bring their plate and she would put it for them. And she taught them that self-control can even happen at this age. So of course, once in a while, you get a child who just goes and grabs it. So she never scolds. She never punishes. She never said anything. She just said, are you very thirsty? Okay. Or are you really hungry? Would you like one earlier? Why don't you ask for it? Okay. So she, under the age of 3, she worked not on just words and numbers. She worked on self-control. And I love to use this example. I feel that if we tell our children that you have access to all of these things, but on their own times, then they learn to control. So later on, when they have the phone, it is not necessary to pick it up. You can leave it for a certain time. Now, if there are issues in your executive functions, you can develop some other issues as well. So while they look like problems, I would really reach in here to say we can all learn. The brain is a very, very moldable organ. It is the most elastic organ that we have. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, the more you use it, the better it gets. Yes, so we can learn at any point, we can train children at any point. It's just easier when they are younger, but it's not like now they are 10 and we can't work on them. It can happen. Okay, all right. So how do we find out if any child has problems with their executive functions? Okay, so they are getting frustrated very easily, so they are throwing around things instead of asking for help. Now, this is where the example of that preschool teacher comes in, right? The preschool teacher was training before it happens. So intervention before the problem arises. Yeah, don't wait for the problem to show up. When doing inclusive education, our mantra is intervene before the child fails. Don't give help after you see the child failing. Yes, so you help the child before that. Now, if you give them directions, they forget what they had to do. If you give the child, go to Mrs. This, take a duster and chalk and bring it back to me. 4 instructions.
Okay.
They go to Mrs. So and they tell her, Mrs. This sent me, but I don't know what she sent me for.
So they've forgotten.
They've forgotten what they came to do. So when they forget, we want to help them remember by setting a mind point or giving them 2 instructions at a time. So not to, or writing down the instructions for them so that they don't forget when they reach that point. So every moment there is help. Yeah. Small things start to throw big emotions. So we know that the self-control has a problem, right?
Okay.
Classroom tasks or finding things is difficult for them. So they struggle with those basic things.
Tasks that they do every day, basically, but they struggle with them.
Yes. For example, the number board.
Okay.
And they go over there and they're like standing over there and figuring it out, like, I can't see it because they did not picture it first. Their working memory is disconnected.
Okay.
So raising hand but doesn't remember. This is so classic in all age groups. It will come up even in the elder ones.
Yeah.
When you ask the question, they've raised their hand. But if you have asked somebody else before them, they've forgotten the answer. So hand is still up, but they've forgotten what the question was and what the answer was. Okay. And then they answer topics off question, like they answer the questions off topic, which is the sign. For example, you're talking "ba" is for ball.
Okay.
And the working memory is connecting the ball to football that they played during the weekend.
Okay.
Now, instead of saying "ba" is for ball, teacher, in the weekend I played with a ball.
Okay.
And the teacher goes, what is this? What is the sound of this one? Ball. What is the first sound? And the child is going on about how they played football in the weekend. Now, the ball is a connecting point in the working memory. So the link is not happening.
Okay. Now, just to understand, these are things that we can look out for in our child or the children that we work with if we're a teacher. But these are things that will happen often, right?
This is not
something that just happens. Yeah. Okay.
Repeated behavior of this. Yes, repeated behavior. The teacher is seeing this behavior all the time.
Okay. So that is a sign that we need to investigate further onto why this is happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this is happening in preschool. Remember, in preschool, the issues are mild, but they look a little bit big because their emotions are bigger. So there can be crying, there can be frustration. So preschools are not that obvious in working executive because every picture is there. The teacher is also much more patient. Now, as they go into grade school, if your executive functions were not noticed before, even if they are, because you have some disalignment with your executive functions, you may face these issues as well in grade school as you grow. Now, this starts a task and gets distracted. This is so common. It is unbelievable. Yeah. A child will start to do the work, like the worksheet or even making something, building something. And then in the middle of it, they will forget about it, go do something else and not remember to come back to this one again.
So
they haven't done it on purpose. They've just forgotten that they had something to finish. And we shout at them is that you're lazy, you couldn't finish your work. But honestly, they have forgotten what they had to do.
Interesting.
And then you can't solve a problem more than one way. For example, now there's you are solving a problem, now you're stuck. So you're not thinking that, okay, this number is bigger, this number is smaller, I can delete, I can minus it, I can use estimates, or I can work like that. But no, I was taught this way. Now I don't remember what's the next step to do. So I have to wait for the teacher to come and help me to complete it. I cannot move forward from this position. So their cognitive, their flexibility is not there. They cannot look at the problem in another way, right? Focus is on the least important thing that you said. Now, this is also so if you talked about finishing your work, finishing your homework, and we will go for a field trip. They focused on the field trip and forgotten all the rest. So they've only picked up on one thing. Yeah, mix it up an assignment. Now, messy desk and mixes up assignment is common, is together. They're so unorganized that they don't know what goes where. So here color coding helps. If the teacher understands that the child has difficulty in organizing, then she can color code her work. She can put a marker of red and say red is for English, blue is for math, so that the child can put them in the right files.
So giving a visual prompt as well.
Exactly.
And connecting that.
Yes. Instead of just expecting the child to read the information and say, okay, this one goes, because they will not read. They are looking for a quick way of sorting the problems out so they can go and do what they want to do. So this is it. And panics. This is also this is important. If your child panics with change, cannot adapt, then we need to first sit and talk about it. And if you think that the child will panic, you've already seen that, then it is better to prepare them with a story or something before you introduce the change. So for example, they are going to start swimming. And that's a change in the routine. So before they start swimming, you tell them a story about swimming, how you went swimming and how everybody was going swimming, or even a storybook with some swimming thing. And then you say, from tomorrow, we will go to swim. This is what will happen. The tutor will take you inside the pool. You will wear floaters. You will be completely fine. And I will be sitting there only. So you'll have so much fun. You are preparing the child's mind for a change that is going to occur. Okay. Because the panicking with change will block out everything. That's where your tantrum will start. Yes. So like we said, if you notice this happening regularly, then we should keep an eye for learning difficulties. Now I've highlighted this, is that behavior is communication. Your child is not out there to disobey you, to hurt your feelings, to disillusion you, to make you hate them, nothing of the sort. You are not a bad parent. Absolutely not. Behavior is communication. If they are behaving like this, find out what they cannot express and find the reason. So if you see your child is getting angry, then please get him to explain to you why he's getting angry. Right?
Absolutely. I think this is so important because I already see it that if I get angry when my son, has these emotions or gets upset, I can see that he reacts worse to it. But if I
Yes.
stop and walk away for a bit and then come back and have a
Absolutely.
conversation, what happened? Why are you feeling like this? It really, really does help to calm him down and to get the reason for what he's feeling. And really, it's nothing that I said. It's something completely different that he's
Yeah.
feeling about.
It won't be connected to anything. True, 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 true.
Yeah.
There are no
Yeah.
bad parents. They are just parents.
No, we're all
There are no bad
learning, I
children.
think.
Yeah.
We're all
We are
learning
all
together.
learning.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Tahseen. So, we've talked about milestones, we've talked about learning styles, and how over time our children go through these phases, and what are some of the things that we need to look out for. We've talked about how behavior is communication, that a child uses their behavior to communicate something to us, something they're feeling or going through. But now we've had these signs, we've spotted these things, we've understood how our child learns. But when and how, as a parent or a caregiver, can we start thinking about learning difficulties that our child is going through?
Okay. That's a brilliant question. And I think we need to understand the first, before we even jump into learning difficulties, is that is the child actually having learning difficulties, or they are just having a different learning style?
Okay.
Because this is also where. So first point is check on those. Let me try to teach them the lesson through read and write, kinesthetic, audio, and visual, and see which one he learns best through. After that, here are some things that we can look at through learning disabilities.
Okay.
Now, learning disabilities are the way they come up with a way that the brain is not connected or not neurologically, they are thinking differently from the rest of us. All right.
Okay.
So they may interfere with their language, their reading, their maths, their social skills, because it's a different pattern of learning. They have to relearn it. All right. And the majority of all learning difficulties, because I call them difficulties, not disabilities, because I feel with difficulties we can add improvement. Sometimes you are with this difficulty for life. For example, if you have a reading difficulty, you can have reading difficulty even when you are an adult, from childhood till adult. But because you have been taught how to read in a different way, you are able to overcome that difficulty.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So majority, out 80% of the reading difficulty of learning disabilities are with reading. So this is why we stress so much upon getting the child to read, if not one way, then another way. But we have to get we try and get the child to read. And these days, there are so many programs that focus on getting their reading sorted, because a lot of their maths issues, a lot of their social skills are related to reading as well. Okay. The fun fact here is the people who are strong readers, they read from the same area as they think and understand of the brain. So there is an area of the brain which is for comprehending, thinking, and reading. If reading is happening from that area of the brain, they are very strong readers. So whenever they read, they quickly grasp the concept, they apply it, and they implement it. So it's done at one go.
For strong readers.
For strong readers. Now, if they are children with learning, with reading issues, then they are reading from another part of their brain, which is not connecting with understanding. So they can read, but not understand at all.
Okay.
So when they are reading, you will say, but you just read. Why can't you remember what you just read? But I can't understand. Okay. So this, yes. So we have those. We need to look out for these sort of things. Okay. So in preschool, you are teaching them words, and they are constantly mispronouncing these words. Even though you're discussing with them at home, you are telling them this is an egg, but they are saying cake or something like that. They're constantly mixing up the letters in the sounds.
Okay.
All right. When you ask them, can you tell me a story? And they are constantly going, what word shall I use here? And they're making all these hesitating sounds because they can't find the word.
Okay. All right.
Difficulty in rhyming. Now, for example, if you tell them, is bag and rag rhyming? Or what is another word that we have with rhyming with bag? They cannot find. They will find at, mat, something like that, which doesn't rhyme with
Okay.
the actual word. Or they will just match the first sounds. Learning alphabets, numbers, colors, shape, all this is difficult for them because this is all associated with memory.
Okay.
They have a difficulty in following routines, right? They can't hold the scissor properly. They can't do beading properly. They can't do, everything is falling from their hands or the hand gets twisted. We know that we need to we need to work on these issues.
Okay.
They can't close their buttons, their snaps, their thing. We know that their fine motor will need work. Okay. So these are some things that look, this list is not exhaustive. There are many other signs. And another disclaimer is that they can be able to do all of this and still have a learning difficulty later on. So this is just indicative.
Yeah, I think, and then again, I think going back to what we talked about is that it's a range. It's not going to happen in age 3. It can happen at age 4. So it's a range of time. And over that time, if these things are happening and you're working with them, but they're still not getting it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the clue is that suppose if you notice these things happening, all right, you're seeing that the child is struggling behind the other students in their class. The immediate thing is accept that the child is facing difficulties. And as parents, our first role is to accept, okay, my child is not doing as well as the others in class. What can I do?
Absolutely.
I am a member of Facebook groups with parents who are parents of dyslexic students or parents of autistic students or parents with, but the first thing they do is, I have accepted it. Now tell me what I can do. They become the advocate of the child.
Yeah.
No, my child can do this. I will work on this. Or you need to do this so that my child can become better at it. Absolutely. But if as parents we deny the problem, then we are lagging, we are making our child stay behind because the teacher cannot do anything without your consent. Absolutely. So they have to work separately with the child. So accept that, okay, this year my child hasn't done so well, then I will look into these things. If he gets better, then I know that it's not learning difficulties, it is a learning style.
Yes. Okay. I understand.
If they are consistently dropping, then I need to use evidence-based methods to make sure that they overcome this difficulty.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think going back to when I was talking about my son and his gross motor skills, for example, they were taking, and this is preschool that I was talking about, they took longer than other kids, but they did develop. But I, as a parent, was keeping an eye on it because I had spotted it and I wanted to make sure that it was not like, a disability or something that he would need extra support, which I, as a parent, cannot provide him. But I had the awareness. And I'll give another example, I think, is that the same son just recently, and Tahseen, because I came to you for this, is that, he was one of his teachers, they felt that it was a new teacher, someone teaching him new, and they felt that, he might have a hearing disability, and he's 10. Yes. And, immediately I was caught off guard because I felt that, as a parent of a 10-year-old, how come I haven't caught this or felt the need to investigate further? Absolutely. But, immediately I didn't go on the defensive. I went and got the necessary support to find out that if this really is a disability or is it something else that is happening. And I came to you as well to run some tests with him and to work with him. And, I think as a parent, you're absolutely right that, we are the ones who can speak for our child and who can help our child.
Yes.
So if we go into denial,
Absolutely.
then that child is the one who is suffering. And we need to be able to advocate for our child and say, okay, there is a problem, there is an issue. Let us find out what is the best way to help our child and solve it.
Exactly. Yes.
And,
because everything has a solution. At least we can help them be at level with their classmates.
Absolutely.
Or just a little bit behind, but explore their other strengths and make them work on those strengths.
Exactly. Because I also have a nephew of mine who is autistic. And they have known that he's autistic since he was very young. He's been diagnosed. And, my family has been providing him the support that he needs. And I see him, all the time. And I've seen how much he's grown. He's about 8 now. And, he's got the speech therapy. He's got the help that he needs. And he's growing. And he can speak now. And he's changed completely because of that support that his parents and family have been providing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've worked with a child with low vision. And the child has progressively, the vision is deteriorating as he ages. But the parent moving from enlarged books when he could still see to magnifying glasses when his vision started deteriorating to now teaching him Braille.
Okay.
So that so you can see that the parent is invested and understands that there is something that I can do to help. So the progress is within us. And I think it's only we who can take our children forward because they are quite dependent on us as well. Yeah. So with age 6+, this is where a lot of because we haven't caught them at preschool. We haven't noticed them enough. And usually they pass. And here, if they hear, we can see them, we can reduce the impact of the difficulty later on in life. However, it really misses its point over here because the teacher will, in a group, will say, okay, he will learn later, give him some. So we have missed that problem, or we have not been aware of it, or we haven't reported it to the other teacher who is taking over. So they are misunderstood or they are just ignored. So when they come over here, they start having problems of blending sounds, confusing basic words. They take time to learn new skills. They consistently, not one or two, they consistently misspell words. This is our first clue. If they are doing the spelling mistake in different ways, animal is spelled like lamina, and same word is spelled differently in different places. That means they are hearing it differently.
Ah, okay.
So
this the same word, but they hear it differently.
Yes. For example, animal, they will spell it with an E first, but they will put the L before M or before, so they are hearing so misspelling is our first clue. So if out of 10 spellings, if they're only getting 2 right, then we start feeling, okay, let's do this test again with a little bit more help. Let's give them flashcards. And even if then they are doing the mistake, then we need to work on their reading skills. Trouble learning basic.
Sorry, and this is not phonetic mistakes, like, they put an E, but it's consistently hearing the words differently and spelling it out differently.
Yes, they are actually, if it was just an E and A being replaced, we can say that the problem is with the phonetic sound. They didn't hear it properly. And the teacher, how she's saying the word, because it's animal, but we are saying it animal,
and the accent makes a difference.
Yes, big difference. Trouble learning basic math concepts. So they don't understand addition, and then they understand addition, but they don't understand subtraction. Multiplication is a case of fear. Remembering their multiplication tables is so hard. Yes, so all of this, time, to keep time, sequencing, this becomes difficult. And I have a couple of secondary students who have missed even the primary school notification.
Yeah.
Because some of them are multiple choice exams, so they passed. Okay, and some people had project work in their primary school, so they didn't have any extra writing to do. Come secondary, we are writing long essays, and the children are unable to write or clearly form sentences in a grammatical order or sequencing. So that's where I think it clues in that this child did have a problem, but we did not catch it at that time. Exactly. Okay. Now, early intervention is the key.
Yeah.
The earlier we catch it, the better it is. In fact, I have had students who have had dysgraphia and problems with reading earlier on. Dysgraphia is problems with handwriting.
Okay.
And dyslexia is a name, but all of you don't have it, a name for reading difficulties, right?
Yeah.
And while we don't want to label any child, and I go very far from saying you are a dyslexic or you are a dysgraphic.
Yeah,
no,
of course.
We don't label children. We don't even tell them in front of the whole class that you have this problem.
Yes.
But if the child knows and they have been tested properly diagnostically and they realize that they have, then they are able to advocate for themselves too. So, for example, if you go and get an evaluation and you find out that your child has ADHD or dyslexia, ADHD is hyperness, or they have dyslexia, reading issues, or they have dysgraphia, writing issues, or they have dyscalculia, math issues, then if the child knows this, then they can go and tell the teacher that I'm sorry, I have this problem. So I would like to have the opportunity to do it differently. For example, I don't want to write my essay. I want to type my essay. So that the spelling is corrected by Word document, for example. Why do we have technology if we cannot use it for children like these? I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that all our children succeed.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? So early intervention is the key. And if we look at the developmental milestones and we look at the behavior and we looked at the learning styles, and we found that all of this were not, something was missing in all of this, then we must get an evaluation done and try and get this issue addressed as soon as we can. Sure. These are some information that is available that we can research on our children.
No, that's really great, Tahseen. Thank you for providing this. And if someone does want more information, I will definitely forward them to you for help. I think, Tahseen, thank you so much for this session today. I'm really hoping that parents around the world, have gotten a greater understanding of the milestones that they expect their children to hit, but why they should be hitting them. Why we should be looking out for these milestones, the different ways that our child can learn. So thank you so much, Tahseen, for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it. And, if there is anything further, we'll give you a shout again for sure.
Thanks a lot. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I would love to advocate on this topic, and this platform has given me that. Thank you so much.